Welcome to the 255, where we help business owners like you unlock the full potential of your business through practical strategies and clear guidance. Hi, I'm Arnold Shields, and I'll be your host as we explore a powerful framework that helps you make smarter decisions, maximize profitability, and build long-term value. In this podcast series, we'll break down a business framework that I call the 255, which stands for 2 fundamentals, 5 multipliers, and 5 foundation stones, which form the foundation of a thriving business. Whether you're just starting out or managing an established company, this framework is practical and actionable. It's designed to guide you step by step towards smarter decisions and greater profitability. Today, we'll introduce the 255 framework and explain why it's so crucial for running a profitable and sustainable business. The great thing about this framework is it applies to all businesses, big and small. In e-commerce, you can be a consultant, you can be a lawyer, you can be a tradie, retailer, wholesaler, whether you're employing one person or 100 people. The principles apply to every business, and it's going to help you. This framework will help you simplify and understand business. And business is a complex process. There are so many moving parts. And this framework enables you to cut back to the basics, the essentials of what you need to do, the fundamentals. And it's so easy to understand. You can start making the right decisions for your business, both short-term decisions and long-term decisions. My name is Arnold Shields, and I've been advising clients for over 30 years on how to run their business. And what we found is that people get their business ideas from many different sources. They're getting from family and friends and from courses they've done online and from YouTube and from formal education like university. And they're getting it from advisors and books and podcasters, and they're getting this information from all these different sources, and it's all over the place. There's nothing consistent. And quite often these things can be about one particular thing. Some of it is actually bad advice, some of it's very good advice, but they're all over the place. What's not round, even in a formal education sense, is not a structure or a framework that explains how business works that you can actually apply. And so that's why I've spent the last 10 years developing how do I explain business to people so they can understand it really easily? How can we diagnose what their problems are and get to the core of the business simply and easily? And the issue with traditional accounting processes is they tend to focus on a simpler formula, sales minus expenses. Increase sales, reduce expenses. That's the typical advice. But in reality, sales consists of 3 components. You need someone to sell to, a lead. You need to make them an offer, and you need to set a price. And what happens when sales decline, people focus too much on adjusting the price while neglecting the other 2 parts, leads and conversion rate. So that the traditional accounting approach to understand how a business functions doesn't always provide a complete picture. So we had to establish a simpler way to explain things and give something that people could understand quickly. And this allows us to give better advice and helps business owners diagnose their own problems. And that's what this framework is all about. So what's a framework? Well, a framework is essentially a structure, guide with key points that helps you understand what's going on without having to go through the entire process every time. And by asking ourselves a series of questions, we can make the right decisions because we're following a structured framework. But the real question is, what should you consider in this framework? What we've developed in this framework boils down to the basics, focusing on what you need to direct your time, energy, and money. Now let's break down the framework itself. The 255 consists of 3 core components, 2 fundamentals, cash flow and risk. At the foundation of every business are 2 key fundamentals, cash flow and risk. These are the essentials you must manage well to keep your business alive and growing. Cash flow is the lifeblood of your business. You need to make sure there's a consistent flow of money to cover expenses, fund growth, and keep everything moving forward. The important thing to understand is you can decide now what the cash flow of your business will look like in the next few years. You might have a high cash flow business with lower sales, or you might have a low cash flow business with higher sales and more people involved. Ultimately, cash flow is the core factor because it determines who will succeed or fail in business. It's not about the number of sales. It's cash flow that defines the winners and losers. Many profitable businesses still go broke because of due to poor cash flow. business with a stronger cash flow has more opportunities at its disposal, more available funds. It can grow faster with less risk. These businesses are better positioned to seize opportunities and reduce risk, making them more proactive and more valuable. On the other hand, businesses with poor cash flow are constantly struggling just to stay afloat. They have fewer funds. They can't grow as quickly and take on more risk because they're always trying to get out of trouble. These businesses find it harder to borrow money or attract investors, and they end up being reactive rather than proactive because they're just focused on survival. So cash flow and risk go hand in hand. When you're evaluating cash flow, you're essentially assessing the risk of the business as well. Risk, the buddy of cash flow is risk. So when evaluating cash flow, you're inherently assessing risk as well. So what's the risk? What can go wrong? Well, risk is the possibility that your expected sales, cash flows, or outcomes may not materialize as planned. So in essence, risk represents volatility. We could assume that everything's going to go in a straight line, but in reality, there's always fluctuations. And those ups and downs represents volatility, and that's what is in effect risk. And every business decision that comes with some level of risk, whether it's launching a new product or entering a new market, hiring staff, managing risk, means always being aware of the potential downside and having a plan to mitigate that risk. It's about protecting a business while allowing it to grow. So cash flow and risk form the fundamentals of every business decision you make. If you manage these fundamentals well, it'll give you the stability and flexibility to make better decisions in the future. Cash flow and risk form the foundation of every decision you make in business. If you manage these fundamentals well, you'll give yourself the stability and flexibility to make better decisions in the future. So next we have the 5 multipliers that make up the business formula. These are the levers you can pull to dramatically increase your impact and drive growth. So the 5 multipliers are: 1, leads. This is about generating potential customers. This is the job of the marketing department. The more leads, quality leads that you generate, the more customers you have to convert them into paying customers. So that's the first multiplier, leads. The second multiplier is the conversion rate. So the conversion rate is the offer. This is the sales department. Once you have a lead, you've got to convert them into a customer. Improving your conversion rate means you're turning more prospects into buyers, which increases your revenue. So we take leads times conversion, we end up with how many units you sell, how many invoices you issue. The third part of the multipliers is the average dollar sale. This multiplier concentrates on the sale price, but it can include much more. It includes bundles and upselling. And depending on how we measure both leads and conversion rate, you can determine how we're going to measure the average dollar sale. But it means getting your customers to spend more for each transaction. And you can raise your revenue without having to bring in new customers. The classic example is, would you like fries with that? So your leads times your conversion rate times your average dollar sale represents your sales. And sales is always a function of these 3 things: someone to sell to, your leads, your offer, which is your conversion rate, and the price. These 3 components end up being the key to getting sales. What we see is quite often is when their sales are falling, they automatically assume it's their price and they reduce their price. I consider price to be like a sledgehammer where you need something far more refined and detailed. The problem that people have is that when their sales are falling, it could be they assume it's price, but it could be because their offer is not as good or they haven't got enough leads. And by using price, they're just trying to bulldoze the other problems away. So that's why we need to break sales down to leads, conversion rate, and average dollar sale. But that doesn't give you sales. What we need to think about is profit, because profit's really what we're looking at. Profit converting into cash, which is also important. The 4th multiplier is your contribution margin. And this is the profit you make from each sale after covering your variable costs and other costs that are associated with producing and selling a product. And if we look at it in a traditional sense, we might take the contribution margin as your gross profit, less the cost of goods sold, plus the cost of advertising and the cost of conversions, which is your sales department, which makes it a much better contribution margin. But the interesting thing is, so when you decrease your discount, what happens is you may be increasing your leads and increasing your conversion rate, because you've got this cheaper product. However, you're decreasing 2 of the other multipliers. So you're decreasing your average dollar sale and decreasing your contribution margin. Finally, the fifth multiple is the valuation multiple. That's basically how we value businesses. Profit times a valuation multiple. And by improving your valuation multiple, you're not just growing your income, you're growing the long-term value of your business. The valuation multiple is really, if you look at it, it's venture capitalists and angel investors, and that's what they're working on. They're working at taking a business multiple to a multiple 15, all the while increasing all the other parts as well. These 5 multiples form the core of the business formula. When you optimize them, you see massive improvements in both revenue and profitability. But there's a couple of insights we get to the business formula. And when we start tweaking the numbers, one of the key insights we see is we don't need massive changes to see a big impact. If you increase just one of the business multipliers, you see linear growth. But if you see increase multiple multipliers at the same time, the growth becomes exponential. So, for example, even with a small increase in leads and conversion rate or an average dollar sale, when applied consistently, can have a massive impact on your business over time. Just small, consistent improvements each month can exponentially grow your business. So we're talking about small changes here, just a couple of percentage points. So maybe you increase your leads by a couple of % with a new ad campaign, or you improve your conversion rate by tweaking the way you deliver your offer. You can even raise your average dollar sale with a simple upsell. And these small changes, just a few percentage points here and there, can lead to an exponential growth in your business. The key is applying these small increases consistently across your business. So the second insight we get is that while small increases can produce massive results, opposite is also true. A small drop in these key multiples, just a slight reduction in leads, conversion rate and average dollar sale can turn a profitable business into a losing one very quickly. It shows how sensitive businesses can be to these multiples. A small decline in each of these areas can make a huge difference. So you need to be able to monitoring these multipliers and managing them carefully. Another important insight is it's always hard to increase all the multiples once. There's always a trade-off. For example, you might increase leads and conversion rates, but decrease in other areas like the margin. And balancing this is crucial. And that's why it's important to focus on all the multipliers, not just one or two. Some businesses get too focused on reducing costs and improving contribution margins, but neglect other areas like lead generation and conversions. So you need to look at the bigger pictures. These multipliers are the key to understanding how your business grows. They are what produces the exponential growth. And that's why we need to spend so much time on them. The resources and information you apply in your business should always focus on improving these multipliers. Finally, let's talk about the 5 foundation stones. These are the foundational elements that ensure your business decisions lead to success. For example, you might choose to run an advertising campaign on Facebook or increase leads and improve your conversion rate. The foundation stones help you guide these decisions, ensure they're grounded in a solid strategy. So we've got a metronome for this, which is time. So time is the first T for times, is your most valuable resource. How do you manage it? Both your own time and your team's time, which directly impacts on your business's productivity and success. Effective time management is about focusing on the high value activities and eliminating the distractions. So we'll talk about time in another episode because it's really important. But one, in the simple instance, we're going to advertise on Facebook. So what do we have to do? Who's going to do that? How much time is going to be allocated to do that? Whether it's going to be, if you're full up doing everything, you've got to think about, okay, which tasks am I going to give away? And the tasks you're going to give away are the tasks that aren't related to the business multipliers, because they're the key ones you need to concentrate on. So I is for innovation. People think about innovation as just being product innovation or technical innovation, but it's about innovation across all aspects of your business. It could be marketing innovation. It could be sales innovation, a change in the way you do things. You need to be always thinking, okay, what are we going to change here to do this? Because you can't be expecting the same results while doing the same thing. There are things you're going to have to change. It could be a change in the way the industry does things. Now, people could be doing something the same way all the time, and that's the way the industry does it. That's the way it works. but you're going to be doing something different. And whether it's about improving your product, services, internal processes, ongoing innovation helps you remain competitive and responsive. M is for measurement. What gets measured gets managed. When we discuss the multipliers and just tiny increases, like a 5% increase in the number of sales or a 5% increase in conversion rate, they're tiny increases. And those tiny increases can be increases, but they can also be decreases. So you need to think about how you're going to measure those aspects of your business if you don't know whether your leads or conversions are going up or down. There's no way you can tell what your business is doing and what you need to do. Without measurement, you're effectively in the dark. And we see that a lot of people aren't measuring some of these. They aren't measuring their key multipliers. And as a result, they only find out they've got a problem when they don't have any money. The key was the evidence 6 months beforehand when there was a problem, but then when they needed to fix it. What happens is it comes down and you always know you've got a problem like this. When it comes down to, oh no, we haven't got any money. That's a sign there was a problem. The problem was that problem was probably evident if you measured it 6 months ago. E is for education. So continuous learning and skill development are critical for both you and your team. The more you invest in education, the better equipped you are to adapt to challenges and seize new opportunities. What we see in a lot of businesses, the founder will go to all the courses, go to all the conferences and everything else, and the team's sitting in dark. And then they get back from the conference and say, my team is hopeless because they don't understand what's happening, but they haven't allocated any time for the education of the team. So as accountants, we've got always a continual process of educating all our team because they need to understand what's happening with the tax users, what's happening in business. So you need to think about education, not just yourself, but also your team. The better equipped, the more you invest in education, better equipped you are to adapt to challenges and seasonal opportunities. S is for systems. Strong systems allow your business to run smoothly and efficiently. They reduce errors, improve consistency, and make it easier to scale. But we're talking about small increases each month. What happens in 12 months' time when you've forgotten because you haven't got a system in place to lock in those wins? So you said, we're going to do Facebook ads, and it's really working, everything's well. But if you don't write a system for doing that and you've optimized it, then you don't have a system. So when you go, I'm going to do TikTok ads, what's going to happen with the Facebook ads if you haven't got a system in place? Systems also allow you to get less qualified, cheaper people to do your work. So these 5 building blocks, times, which is time, innovation, measurement, education, systems, allow you to make sure you're making the most of your decisions. You need to consider the time, you need to consider innovation, what's going to change, what you need to measure, what education and what systems you're going to put in place. If you've got those things in place, you've got a good chance that whatever decision you make, it's got to have the best chance of success. One thing to understand about the 255 is not just enough to focus on one component, but you have to integrate them. For example, you might be generating lots of leads, but if you're not managing your cash flow properly, you're going to find yourself struggling to cover expenses. Or you could be increasing your average dollar sale, but ignoring your contribution margin, which means you're not actually increasing profitability. The real power of this framework comes from integrating all the elements, managing your fundamentals, optimizing your multipliers, and building your decisions on solid foundations. When these elements work together, your business becomes more efficient, profitable, and resilient. But today, I also want to focus on one of the most important roles, the role of the CEO. So right now, you're probably wearing all the hats in your business. You're the CEO, you're the marketer, the salesperson, the production manager, the admin, the HR. You're doing it all. But let's focus on the role of the CEO specifically. And you might find that out of all the roles you play, the CEO hat isn't worn as often as you would think. So what's the role of the CEO? It comes down to two key responsibilities, which simplifies things. The first responsibility is to set the vision for the company. Where's the business going? What are its goals? Do you want to scale the business to $100 million in sales or build something worth $100 million? Or maybe your goal is to create a stable, consistent income stream, moving from $100,000 a year to $300,000 a year. But whatever your vision is, you need to establish it clearly. Once that's done, you can begin working backwards to figure out how to achieve it. For example, if your business is going to be worth $10 million in 5 years, what do you need to do to get there? Let's assume you want $10 million in sales with a profit margin of 20%. Well, you need to generate $2 million in profit. To get there, you'll need to plan out how much inventory you'll need, how many employees, what pricing strategy to adopt, how many leads you need to convert, how much cash you will need, when you would have to borrow it and when. And from there, you can map it out back to what you need to accomplish in 4, in 3, in 2, all the way back to today. Another part of this process into establishing the vision is determining how you're going to fund this growth. Can you fund it organically through profits, or will you need to borrow money or bring in investments? This is something we'll deal with in another episode because it's really important to develop that complex, detailed model about how your business is going to be. And while setting the vision, you also need to think about what could go wrong. What risks are involved? How do you mitigate or minimize them? Many believe that running a small business means constantly taking risks, but that's not true. Your job as a CEO is to identify the risks and find ways to minimize them. The first role of the CEO is to set the direction. The second is to ensure that the business has the resources, time, money, to follow that path. So at the heart of the role of the CEO is managing two fundamentals, cash flow and risk. These are the primary responsibility of the CEO. Cash flow is the lifeblood of the business. You must ensure there's enough of it to keep the business running and growing. At the same time, you need to manage the risks, preventing it from derailing your progress. The other areas of your business, like leads, conversion rates, and pricing, are handled by specific departments. Marketing focuses on leads, sales handles conversion rates, and your operations team manages production and contribution margin. But cash flow and risk, that's the CEO's responsibility. You decide whether you're going to have a high cash flow business or a low cash flow business, a fast growing business or a slow growing one. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave with one key takeaway. What's the vision for your business? Where do you want it to go? This is the primary role of the CEO, establishing a clear vision and setting the direction for your company. In upcoming episodes, we'll explore how to refine that vision and take actionable steps to achieve it. In the upcoming episodes, we're going to dive deep into each part of the 255 framework. We'll begin with the 2 fundamentals, cash flow and risk, and then move on to the 5 multipliers and 5 building blocks. I'll be sharing practical tips and real-world examples, how you can apply to your business. The goal is to empower you to make smarter decisions, improve operations, and drive profitability. Thanks for tuning into this first episode of the 255. And we'll see you next time where we're breaking down the fundamentals of cash flow and risk. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe on Shopify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. If you have any questions you'd like me to cover, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Arnold Shields, and I'd love to hear from you and include your questions in future discussions. Once again, I'm Arnold Shields. This is the 255. Thanks for listening and see you next time.